Welcome to the forum. It seems like the majority of people here are already on chapter, but as we are filming this forum, it'll be available for others and hopefully encourage others to come forward to be candidates for chapter. But the first thing we do, of course, as always, is to pray. So let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with all who take counsel in our chapter for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. First thing you're going to hear is Phyllis is going to reprise her wonderful talk that she did a couple of weeks ago, because she says all the important things about chapter.
Okay, I am here before you today, surprised that I'm here to talk about chapter. When I was asked last year if I would consider standing for chapter, for election to a place on chapter, I thought, wait, isn't that the executive board? And an election? I don't think so, as I lifted my eyes to God and thought, really, God? My experience with executive boards, both secular and religious, hadn't been too good. And it definitely wasn't a ministry. Too many people, too long, too boring, often contentious. But as with so many things in this beautiful and joyous St. Paul's Cathedral, St. Paul's breaks the mold. First, the name. Our board is called chapter because of early church history. Early cathedrals were associated with monasteries and chapter houses. At least once a day, the monks in charge would get together in the chapter house to read a chapter of a religious text. So that meeting came to be called chapter in Episcopal cathedrals and expanded to include both clergy and lay leaders handling the spiritual and business needs of the church. With God's love and grounded in gratitude for the blessings I've received in this extraordinary cathedral, I've now served on chapter for a year. It is a diverse and bright group of people. They know what they're doing, and with God's help, operate each day with a spiritual mission to lead this church in the ways God would have us go. Being on chapter at St. Paul's Cathedral is like helping steer and serve on an aircraft carrier. Making turns can be dicey, but we have the opportunity to create a happy spiritual wake with positive and hopeful results for our whole community. Our meetings are usually on Zoom, efficiently run by our Dean Penny. We cover a lot of territory in about an hour and a half. Meetings are not boring, never contentious, and conducted in a respectful, competent manner. All of us have an opportunity to report on congregational issues needing to be addressed and to support each other as the need arises. This year, while doing the critical business of keeping our budget on track and the lights on, we successfully opened our doors to an unprecedented number of people in new ways. We are forging ahead in building a new music center, which will extend our reach to artists and patrons as never before. With your help, we are completing a strategic plan to address issues you care about, while continuing to serve San Diego spiritually in ways that welcomes all, no exceptions. Ultimately, chapter is a ministry. I'm honored and humbled to be a member and invite you to consider going for it yourself. God works in mysterious ways.
Packet that Sterling is handing out is our policy about chapter elections and also nomination forms. If you're already on chapter, hold on to this and hand it to somebody who isn't when you see them next. And Sue is handing out a sample agenda. If you served on a vestry of a smaller parish church, which is the exact equivalent of the chapter of the cathedral, you might have found that it sometimes might be contentious. it might be a lot of work because maybe the rector and a musician and a part-time administrator are all the staff, and so a lot falls on the vestry. In a church the size of the St. Paul's, we have quite a number of staff. If you don't count the singing section leaders in the choir, we have about 15 staff. So a lot of what we oversee is overseen by the staff. Although I'll just mention one of my, the bees in my bonnet is the staff are not here to do the ministry, but to help you do the ministry. But that means that chapter is more freed up to think about higher level decisions, which are necessary in a non-profit that has a budget of over $2 million and some very significant real estate to look after. So it's delightful to hear Phyllis talk about the contrast between former service on boards and what it's like to be on chapter. I thought it might be helpful to see a sample agenda. This is actually one of our busier meetings. So it's about as busy as they're going to get. But typically it's on Zoom, except for twice a year. We meet in person to bond. And we start at 5:30. We are open, it's an open mic for sharing if there is a burden or a joy that you're bringing with you into the meeting so that we know where we are, where each other is, if there's something on your mind, your heart, or if you have a prayer request. And then we go into a brief opening prayer that's typically from the Book of Common Prayer. We do the Robert's Rules business of approving the agenda and approving the minutes. People have an opportunity at that point to look at the consent agenda, item 6 here with all the staff reports, 10 regular reports from staff, and to say, I would like us to be able to discuss one of these items. And so then we pull that item out, that report, out of the consent agenda. And then we go into our old business. In this case, the major gift campaign was well underway, and Richard Hogue gave a brief oral report on how that was going. And then we have this mix of administrative business and ministry and new ideas of various kinds that come under the agenda. So because this was the March meeting, we had people who'd just been elected 6 weeks earlier to chapter. So we looked at the covenant. We have a covenant that's a set of norms for chapter behaviour, both in the meetings and outside of them. And Kimberly, as our Dean's Warden, aka First Vice President of the corporation, led that item. The mutual ministry agreement is sort of contract between the Dean and the chapter that is renewed every year. And it has a series of goals for the Dean and a series of goals for chapter. And sometimes there are joint goals. And so this helps us to stay in touch with each other so we don't get too far apart in what we think we're doing. And hopefully heads off any possible misunderstandings or conflicts that might otherwise arise. And so we looked at the mutual ministry agreement, and Alan, as a chapter member, led that discussion. And then the diocese had asked us this year, because of the election, to appoint congregational voter advocates, or one or more people who would help to steer our efforts to guide the congregation in the election season. And Paul, as the chair of Peace and Justice Committee, led that discussion. We appointed Angel Ibarra, who is a chapter member, to be our advocate this year. And then Andrew Brooks, who at that time was our Chancellor, the Cathedral's legal counsel, took us through an agreement, a partnership agreement with the La Jolla Symphony Chorus to allow them to have concerts here for a reduced rate because we benefit so much from them bringing so many people in. And so it's a mutually beneficial partnership that we started. Andrew actually retired as Cathedral Chancellor, and we appointed Mark van der Haar as Chancellor. Thank you, Mark, for stepping up. It's important to have someone paying attention to what's going on and to stop us from going over any kind of lines and to advise us on contracts and insurance and that kind of thing. We have the LLC, Nutmeg and Olive, that is a subsidiary of the Cathedral and owns this 525 Olive space, the 6% of the building that we own. And we have a chapter liaison to that group of LLC managers, and that's an annual appointment. And Russ Ogihara stepped forward again to be our chapter liaison to the LLC. Then we had our regular financial reports. Betsy Monsell is our wonderful volunteer treasurer, and she gave us the highlights of the monthly financials. So far this year, it's always been good news and very straightforward. And then we had a special resolution to take $50,000 from our reserves and put them in Buildings and Grounds Fund to allow repairs. There are always repairs needing to be done, as you can imagine, with the size of this building and the age of the cathedral building. And Betsy walked us through that. So all of these items have reports submitted ahead of time, as well as the 10 staff reports. So the biggest part of the time, I think, spent as chapter members is reading the reports and being ready for the meeting. We try our best to have the reports in an online repository for the weekend before the meeting, which is always on a Tuesday. And we went through all of that business, and we were done in 1 hour and 17 minutes. So it's not an endless meeting, especially on Zoom. You just can't have very long meetings. People lose focus, I think. But we do get through the meetings in a timely fashion. People have an opportunity to prepare for them and an opportunity to speak and ask questions as needed. So if you're apprehensive about serving a chapter because you think it's going to be awful long evenings of argument, that is not the case. It's an important ministry. I think everyone should take a turn. It's a 3-year chunk term, and you're not out there on your own. There are 16 members of chapter. We work together in partnership. And the executive staff also come to chapter meetings. So my overall goal is that everything chapter does should be transparent to the congregation, and everything the staff does should be transparent to chapter, so that people feel fully informed and empowered in their ministry. So now I'm going to hand over to Sue Kelly, our People's Warden, or second Vice President, and she'll invite people to come and talk about your experience on chapter.
Thank you, Penny. I want to add that you don't have to be a member of chapter to attend the meetings most times. You can come get the Zoom link from Penny or the office or one of the chapter members, and you're more than welcome to attend and see what it's like. And one of the joys is getting to know the other people that are on chapter, and I certainly want to contrast this the way it was 20 years ago. Not that you didn't know the members of chapter, but Zoom has made it so much easier. You often have cats or dogs attending, usually under the table and not in front of the camera, but occasionally they make their appearance. Or a small child will come in and ask a parent what they're doing. So there's an element of surprise and delight in it as well. One of those delights is when we have the chapter retreat, you have a time to meet other chapter members and get to know them a little better. And in a small group that I was in last February, we found that 3 of the 4 members of our group all had played the clarinet and the violin at different times in our lives, which is something you would not normally find out on a Sunday. Now, I'd like to invite some of the other members at chapter to speak about their experiences, and they will each probably have a brief take on their experiences now. So, Jill, do you want to be first? Or Paul or Jill, did you want to? Paul, could you get up? Thank you. Here's Paul Tessier.
Yes. Well, it's a kind of extraordinary experience to be drawn into the inner workings of this wonderful place and to appreciate it more. And I had been on the periphery of the parish for a long time. When I looked at the dates, I was astonished. So this was a way for me to contribute. But I also, in deciding to stand for chapter, I thought it would be one of those experiences that also transforms the participant. Next.
I have found being on chapter is an excellent opportunity to better understand how the cathedral operates, what we do with the money that we get contributed to us. And it's just been a really valuable experience. So I really encourage people to give it a try. You'll get a lot of help from the current chapter members as you get acclimated to the system that we have. Penny's great about moving the meetings right along. So it's a commitment of time, but you kind of know that it's limited time. So that's also good. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, all, fellow parishioners and fellow chapter members. This is my last term. I'm terming out after this year. I've been on chapter for almost 3 years. And quite frankly, this is my third time around. And it's always been a pleasure. It's always nice to serve on chapter because you actually are a representative of the congregation. You can hear what people's concerns are. You can share them with chapter. You can share them with the dean and administration. And, we've accomplished a lot, especially this year. We recovered from COVID. We have to look back upon all the good things that happened. And we accomplished a major gifts campaign that we can see the potential in the future for our church. So I really highly encourage all of you to either put the word out that we would like good, strong chapter members to come forth as nominees. Sue and I and other members of the nominating committee have been working really hard, so we want to get people out there to get interested. So please let them know we're interested. Thank you.
Morning. So when I first learned about chapter, I didn't even know it existed. I was looking at ways to get more involved at St. Paul's. I started coming to church here a few years before, and I got a phone call from Darian, who at the time was the dean's warden, asking me to run on chapter. And if you know Darian, she can be very persuasive when she wants you to do something. So I ran, and I did not win my first election, but I did get appointed for a year. So now I'm serving my second year on chapter. And really what I've learned is how to get involved with other ministries through chapter. Really how to get involved with the church. I've learned a lot. A lot of you may or may not know, I'm not a cradle Episcopalian. I didn't go to church for 20 years before I came to St. Paul's. And I had no idea how a church that was set up with the governmental structure that St. Paul's has and the Episcopal Church has operated. So it really taught me a lot about what the Episcopal Church is by being able to serve on chapter. And also one thing that I think is very great for people to understand is chapter works as an organization together. If you're on chapter, you don't have any individual power in the church. You work as a body, and it's what the body approves for the church to do is what goes forward. So if you're nervous that you're going to be given all this authority when you go on chapter, you don't have to worry about that at all. We're just here to remember to serve the church and to serve God and to make sure that St. Paul's is continuing to go in the right direction so that little one who comes and asks me what I'm doing in the middle of chapter members can know about Jesus and can grow up in a church where she feels loved and accepted as well.
That was Alan Mutchler. He has a very adorable little daughter. I've been on 4 vestries at other churches. And in one church, I was on the vestry 3 or 4 times. And everything that Penny said about them being long, boring, contentious, absolutely true. This one is not. I was astonished at my first chapter meeting at how quickly it went, how organized it was, how the business went through. I figured, it's a cathedral. There's all this business. I figured this is going to be a 6-hour meeting. Hour and a half, it was done. But at the same time, everybody got a chance to say what they wanted to do. One of the things I did want to say, though, is that as many of you know, I've been leading an effort to do a strategic plan for the church. Let me tell you why I did that, because it'll reflect back on what other people have said. I helped Russ with the initial part of raising the money for the music program. And part of that was going to some of the leaders of the church and one-on-one asking for a donation. I heard more than once questions about what we were doing, why we were doing it. I'm not going to give much because that's not what I do, and all this stuff. And I started thinking about that, in that, have we done a good enough job in explaining to the parish exactly why we're doing what we're doing? And I brought that to Penny first, and then to the group, in saying, we need to ask to do a little bit better job. I communicated to them what I had heard. We talked about it, and they said, okay, take the role of leading through a strategic plan. But I'm not doing it by myself. As Alan and others here know, I have a meeting once a week when we can, when we need to, and we talk through it. I'm not doing everything. I use them for guidance to help make decisions, and then either I go do it or appoint one of them to go do it. It's not that you are doing everything yourself. And you can do as much. There are people on chapter that are involved with 6 different ministries, 5 or 6 different ministries. If that's what you want to do, great. I do the strategic plan, and I come to the meetings, and that's pretty much what I do. And that's fine. You can do as much or sort of as little, as long as you do something, as you want to do. It's not like you are asked to be on every committee. You're asked to do something that's going to take a lot of your time. I am an example of someone who brought something from the parish to the chapter, got something done, and am going through a plan. We've been flexible on the timing of it, and I've had great support from the rest of the people on chapter. So I strongly encourage anybody to join with us on chapter. I've got 1 more year, and it's been a great experience, especially compared to vestry experiences in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to share about their experiences? Tony, did you get a chance? She had something really great to say.
Good morning. So I'm Tana Chavez. I've been on chapter 3 years. I'm ending my term. I'm on the nominating committee as well. I agree with everything that everyone has said thus far. I'd like to maybe give a different perspective of someone who, when I was originally asked, didn't really think I might be worthy to serve on chapter. Thought I had to have, lots of knowledge, experience. So I just encourage anyone who's thinking that they're not worthy, that if you're asked, that it means that God has placed it in someone's heart to reach out to you and to really just be prayerful and know that God will provide you with all that you need to be a member of chapter. And it's really a faith-based walk because none of us have all the answers, and we're really work better together than we do separately. So for those of you who may have doubts, that's it.
Thank you, Tanya, and all of the members of chapter that were able to speak. And I wondered if anybody else would like to speak to it. If you've been a member of a chapter before, we'd be glad to have you up here. I think Tanya's last point about diversity is very important. And we need that. There's strength in diversity. You have much better decisions if you have a wide range of opinion and experience. And so don't let fear of not being capable dissuade you from serving. As you can tell, there's a very supportive group. They all came out to speak to you today and encourage you. If you're interested at all in serving on chapter, please speak to any member of chapter, a member of the nominating committee, or Penny. Typically, I'll just say, among the commitments every year is a chapter retreat, which is held here in this guild room, and they feed you. It's a lot of fun. And they say it's all day, but usually you're through by very early afternoon. And it's great because you get an opportunity to meet people. Your first year of chapter, you're kind of getting your feet wet. It's not difficult, but you kind of feeling your way, and that's fine. You can do it, as they say, as little or as much as you'd like throughout your service year. And then you get more comfortable in the second year. You're able to chat, to joke online with your fellow members, and by the third year, you really have your feet under you. You have a better idea of what you're doing, and don't be afraid. We'd love to have you. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Penny has another thing to say.
Just a couple of dates and facts to wrap us up. The election takes place on January 26th next year, so there's some time. That's our annual parish meeting, and they feed us, we have lunch, and then do the business of the church. So that's an important date. And the forums in January tend to focus on the business of the church. So we have a forum, and I'm forgetting which Sunday in January it is, but we do have a forum where those who have stepped forward as candidates will be speaking and giving their pitches, if you like, giving you an opportunity to get to know them a little bit. And another forum in January also on the final budget for the year. So those are important times to be aware of. And I think nominations are open until early December. I think the beginning of December. So, are they through Christmas? Yeah, maybe it's through Christmas. So you don't have to make a decision today, or even this week, or even this month. But I hope that you will pray about it. And if you need to know more, talk to any of these wonderful chapter members who have spoken, and see where God is taking you. It's really not an onerous ministry. I've been going to chapter meetings or vestry meetings for 27 years now, every month. So 3 years isn't much, really. So, and as Sue said, the diversity is important. It's important to have both long-time members and people who are new to the community, because you bring very different perspectives. When you've been somewhere for a long time, you stop noticing things. But on the other hand, there is a limit, and we do need you to have been a pledging member for, I think it's the 7 months leading up to the annual meeting. And that's the best signal we can have of commitment. So if you pledged for 2024, you're good. If you haven't yet pledged, pledge for 2025, and then you could be in the election in the year. So we invite you to do that. I'm very grateful to all our chapter members. They are committed and faithful people, and it's a real joy to be in partnership with them. So thank you all for listening. Anyone have anything else to say? Any other business, as we say at the end of chapter meetings? Okay, Sue, anything else? No? Okay, thank you very much for paying attention.